There we go. Everything's fixed now. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Um, Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. So first of all, this is Thanksgiving. I want to say something about today that most people seem to not understand. Thanksgiving has nothing to do. For some reason, my live stream decided to unmute itself. Where was I? Oh, Thanksgiving is not a specific religious holiday. You can be any religion at all, and by definition, except atheist or Satanist, and still give thanks. It's also not a particularly uh, um, racially interested. Right. I'm getting so sick of everything on earth being racist just because X, Y, or Z first thought of it. Next thing you know, planes will be racist, cars will be racist, boats will be racist, and every society in history has come up with some variant of a boat theory. It's insulting. Really, it is. You know, and for those of you that have been following the channel for a while, long time ago, back in 2001, Fixed Bayonet said something about who can and cannot fly planes is a flippant remark to a guy who was making an actually racist rant about 9/11. All right. I admit my thinking ever since then has been badly influenced by that, but she's right. Right. Yes, Afghans really can fly planes. So can anybody else who's going to take the time to learn. Ah, it's kind of ironic, that kind of thinking. Blacks are intellectually inferior and cannot pilot aircraft led to the best fighter pilots of World War II, the Red Tails. So I guess for the unfair testing, it worked out better for them. That's not a good thing, but it is a true thing. My other rant is related to this morning's premiere. Premiere? No, scheduled release. To the sheep of the world, when you've finally destroyed that which you hate so much by getting everything that you wanted, it's all going to go away. You're going to lose everything for the difference. But whatever. What do I know? I'm just some guy ranting at a computer. It's not like I've seen it happen or anything. um, for those of you that are going to be asking, Pappa Carry gets out of the hospital apparently today. One of his neighbors is picking him up from the hospital, but that's still TBD because the person who said that he was going to be released tomorrow may not have realized that today was Thursday, Thanksgiving, and so she may or may not be there to release him. Yeah, it happens. The new avatar, the new logo, I'm very excited about. Um, until he steps forward and says, "Oh yeah, I did this. This was my handiwork." I'd rather not throw him under the bus, but he's a really cool guy, and I will try to give him more shout outs. He deserves it, but not just yet. But I love it. I actually, all I did was send him a photograph of a sword and my holster lying there with some close up shots, so in case he wanted to compare them. And he sent me back actually two, one without the holster but with the dark sword, and one with the lighter sword but with the holster. And I kind of merged them together and was like, no, that's exactly right. That's perfect. In all due fairness, though, all I did was copy and paste. I didn't actually do anything even vaguely artistic. He did literally everything. And all I did was, draw a mustache on the Mona Lisa by comparison. Um, but you know what? I love it. I do. I love it. It was better than what I had in mind or what I had hoped for or envisioned or anything like that. I had to change the logo because the original logo was made by somebody who's no longer associated with the channel. And there's a reason for that. So I couldn't use the old logo. This new logo was uh, only for the new logo purposes. So now I can hopefully use it forever. Um, about Thanksgiving, some things that most people don't really think about. What is Thanksgiving? Well, it was a day that everybody in the community said, you know what? We've had a really, really good year. Let's celebrate this great harvest that we got using whatever was available, by the way, and give thanks to God. And they did invite the local Indians to come down and celebrate with them. I know the history book says they did come. Some people say no, they didn't. Okay, whatever. You believe what you want to believe. Um, had nothing to do with whose religion it was. It had everything to do with thanking God for the bounty that had come. Really, you should be saying Thanksgiving every day. For those of you that pray over your meals, that's what you're supposed to be saying. Thank you, food, for this, or thank you, God, for this food we're about to receive. You don't have to be a farmer to understand that you live in a bountiful land. There are places out there where some people would never, ever give thanks because their lands are not only not bountiful, they're disgusting. Granted, there's fewer of those sorts of places. There's a lot of places out there that would be just phenomenally bountiful if they could get past certain issues. I'm thinking specifically of all places, Somalia. Somalia could be just this incredible breadbasket of, well, Africa and the Middle East, really. But they're caught up in this continuing civil war that's been going on. Holy shit on a shingle. It's been going on more than 20 years now, and I know because Black Hawk Down happened before I went in the service. And it had been going on for several years before that. So 30-ish years now? Ethiopia, and it Cherry. I cannot pronounce the other country's name correctly to save my life. When That civil war ended. One of the fears of the international community was that those two groups were going to go at each other over who was going to control the country now. Fortunately, those two groups came to an agreement that they were just going to cut the new Ethiopia in two along the original-ish borderline. The Eritreans were going to go off and form their own country, and the Ethiopians were going to form their country. Eritrea, for everything that I've heard, has been consistently pretty stable since then. Ethiopia has descended back into civil war, and that is quite unfortunate. Eritrea is doing well. They're doing actually pretty well. Ethiopia could as well if they could just get past this cycle of violence over and over again. It's really sad to see this continuing to happen. That's been going on since I was a little guy. I remember watching Saturday morning cartoons and seeing, oh, you know, give us money for starving children in Ethiopia ads, and being heartbroken to see it and knowing there was nothing I could do at 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. Now I'm 44 and it's still going on. That's really not a good sign. You're not restricted about giving thanks for living in a good land, as long as you have someone to give thanks to. You know what? You're not restricted for giving thanks for living in a bad land when the people around you or you yourself are turning it into a bad land. You have no one to blame but yourself. Fortunately, US seems to be kind of starting to head that direction. And a big part of Ethiopia's problem is not that the land is bad, but rather that the system around it is bad. They've got great um, uh, hunt, hunting, farming potential, but you can't move the grains, the milk, etc., from point A to point B without it getting blown up or burned or robbed. And the US is literally one step away from exactly that scenario. For those of you that have been following me for a while, you probably have heard the theory. I can even tell you whose trucks are going to be targeted first, how they are going to be targeted, and it's some pretty strong but generalizations on where. This is the real world. And once those trucks stop moving, all of the trucks will stop moving with them until some really extreme measures are taken to let them start moving again. It has nothing to do with COVID, right? The COVID revolts, reopening the economy, started with truckers saying, hey, we have nowhere to eat, nowhere to sleep, nowhere to shit. That was literally a comment made on Facebook. I'm a trucker and I can't even take a shit. That's where the COVID revolts really started. That led to the governors being basically forced to reopen some of the economy to let truckers start moving again. That led to them being threatened. Why are you shutting down every restaurant, and why are you shutting down everything? And they started saying, okay, well, we'll reopen this, we'll reopen that, or we'll reopen, but we're putting controls in, safeties in. Okay, Well, they didn't put the appropriate safeties in. That is as simple as that. Just saw a video this morning by Viva Free talking about Gretchen Whitmire, rather's impeachment proceedings. This is something I've seen coming for a long time. She should have been impeached back in May when she thought it'd be funny to shut down chapels by ordering the highway patrol to harass people going into the chapels and put nails in parking lots. That is fundamentally unsafe. You blow those tires out, driver loses control, somebody dies. What the hell is wrong with you, lady? Harassing people driving through chapels is bad enough. And this is, by the way, back when I didn't realize that this was going to be some sort of drive-through chapel process. I thought people were actually going to get out of the car, go inside. I didn't even think, by the way, at that point about people stepping on these nails, just driving through them, because the implication was the nails were at the edge of the parking lot where it would blow out tires. And now I find out these people were never supposed to get out of their cars. Okay, well, that's a bad place for her to have started from. And second of all, that this even happened at all. There was no excuse for putting nails in parking lots, lady. You should have been impeached back in May. You're, you're lucky that the legislators who are coming after you, as they should have months ago, are actually coming after you over the state Supreme Court ruling rather than the fundamental uh, danger that you now are presenting to Michiganders. Still nobody in the stream. I wish I could say that I was terribly surprised. It's Thanksgiving. Yeah. Okay, so on to a new subject for a moment. What would be a good new subject for today? Oh, something I've been meaning to go over for a long, long time. Exemptions. There seems to be this continuing thought process, and I don't want to give it the credit of saying these people thought, but a thought process that mandatory carry applies to everybody under all situations without exceptions. No, that's never what it said. Even when Danislav was literally a copy and paste of Kenesaw's city ordinance, it never said that. Kenesaw's city ordinance doesn't even say that. It gives, I think originally it was 4 specific exemptions, and now it's 5, or 3, and now it's 4. Conscientious objector has always been one, and that's something I had to actually fight over. Okay, so the 3 categories are mandatory exemptions, conditional exemptions, and elective exemptions. Mandatory exemptions are ones that the state has to give you. Whether they want to or not, they have to say, yes, you are exempt. Of them, yeah, only 2 of them are mandatory in the sense that you, as the exemptee, have to accept it whether you want to or not. Would be felons and violent political protesters. every state has some law that says a felon cannot carry a gun, period. Most states have some sort of law that even restricts them further, like can't carry a knife over 3 inches, folded or otherwise, or you can't carry pepper spray, or you can't carry um, any deadly weapon, I think is what California's law says. Yeah, that's already part of the process. Why would we need to worry? Why would we need to think about this part? Violent political protester was the last one added so far, and probably the last one that's going to be added. And this was a direct response to things that were happening in 2016 and 2017. It's called the Antifa exemption for a reason, right? Their crazy, insane violence. Actually, no. 2016, the riots that broke out on the day of the inauguration, the limo burning was the reason why I finally said, no, you're right. We got to give them an exemption. That is also the only exemption that once you get it, it never goes away. It is for life. A felon could, at least in theory, go to prison, do their time, get out, go on to parole for 2, 3, 4 years, or 6 weeks, or whatever the judge, whatever the sentence reads, go to a judge 2, 3, 5 years later and say, Your Honor, I did rob a bank, or I did beat a man to death, or this, or that, or the other thing, but I've gotten my life squared away again. I'm a good person now. Could I please have my rights back? And the judge will take whatever the law says and say, okay, you know what? You screwed up, but you are rehabilitated. You are a good member of society now. Here's your rights back. Now, as a particular fuck you to California, and I'm straight up going to say that this is the California rule. If you do not have your duty to carry back, you cannot have your voting rights back. Ooh. Well, that would definitely put some pressure on California to clean their shit up. um, and the one has to be attached before the other can be. You could do them together in the same process, but you literally have to have the one to get the checkbox on the other started. It's that simple. The Antifa exemption, once you get it, you don't have a right to vote anymore. You will never have a duty to carry, and you will never have you will never be allowed to carry anything. And it is as simple as police officer stops you. You got that violent political protester exemption. Oh, empty your pockets. Let me see what's in there. You got a key ring with 40, 15, 12, 5 keys on it. Nope, that's a deadly weapon. That's my house keys and my car keys. And well, then, you know what? Split them up somehow. Figure it out. It's that simple. You're not even allowed to carry too many car keys because 5, 10, 20 years earlier, you thought it'd be a good idea to beat somebody because you didn't like what they were saying. 5, 10, 15 years earlier, you thought it was okay to smash in windows and chant burn him out because you didn't like what he was saying. I know Milo is not everybody's favorite presenter now, and I know some of it comes from some very, very off-color jokes he made. You know what? Milo's the victim there, not Antifa. All right. I'm being told there's 2 people watching, so please say hello. All right. The rest of that list is, well, Generally, the rest of that list, hey, happy Thanksgiving to you too, Alpine. The rest of that list is generally actually just a proactive defense. Yeah, I believe that's the proper legal term. Um, mental incompetence or psychological incompetence, which may not always necessarily mean you can't carry. I have PTSD. This is not even a secret, but I can account for my actions in court. Well, let's just say, hey, Foss, listening while you do something. I do that a lot. Um, let's say that I knew my PTSD made me a little bit less okay than I actually am. I'm know me. I know I shouldn't be carrying a gun under any circumstances or under very restrictive circumstances. I could go to the courthouse and say, Your Honors, I work as a security guard. When I'm on the clock, I'm one person. When I'm off the clock, I'm another person. Can I get an exemption for off the clock to not carry a gun? And the judge might just say, you know what? I accept that. Here's your exemption. While you are clocked in and on duty, you can carry. When you clock off, your gun goes in a locked box. By the way, these these exemptions don't actually have any stipulations to what judges can and cannot stipulate on top of the exemption. I deliberately did it that way. Okay, mental incompetence. And this really means somebody with an IQ, I think legally it's below 80. The technical term is a word you can't say on YouTube or fascist book, but it starts with R, ends with D. Just saying. If you can't, if you cannot account for your actions in an intelligent way or a reasonable way, they have to give you an exemption because you may not be able to understand. This guy flailing his arms around like this is not a threat to anybody. He's trying to get help. If you're not capable of making those sound decisions, with the grace of God, go. Just don't start sinning after this point just because you got the exemption. And that's the way it's got to be. I've always known that. Um, physical, uh, uh, physical handicap. And the picture I always have in my head is an old man on his deathbed being asked to swing an M1 Grand around to defend his own life. I mean, what kind of mental retardation is this? Okay. Well, he could have a revolver. Maybe he can't. Maybe his arms will not lift anymore. You're not going to give this guy an exemption. You're going to actually fine this guy $200 or $2 million because he's old? Nah, fuck you. Another mental image I always put in my head is Stephen Hawkins. He was wheelchair bound to an nth degree for most of my life, actually. I think I was like junior high school when he first went into the chair. I know I was in high school when his computer that allowed him to speak was built because I saw the documentary on building that computer when I was in high school. You're going to ask him to carry a gun? No, 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 no. All right, there's a joke meme about that. Mounting M134s on either side of a wheelchair. Not how it works, Tim. All right, the next one in line Homeless. I'm sorry, indigent. But indigent was defined as homeless. If you're homeless, you got bigger problems to deal with. That exemption is perfectly understandable. That exemption is also the first one that I ever said, that needs to be a proactive defense as opposed to a mandate. You can be homeless and I'm telling you from personal experience, still have a gun. Yes, Timmy. Actually, I only barely understand the Timmy reference because of Mecha Random. She plays that clip from time to time. Either way, um, I'm telling you from personal experience, homeless people have guns, knives, brass knuckles, whips, chains, bludgeons, anything you can name. There was a homeless guy who had an actual assault weapon. It was an AR-15. He did a well-known trick to turn it into an automatic rifle. He showed it to me once. I was like, oh, don't talk about that. He also got busted on the next exemption, habitual drug offender. All right, habitual drug offender was the next one that I realized needed to be a proactive defense and not necessarily a citable one. Felon in possession and a violent political protester, or a felon in possession of a bullet, I've seen this happen before, can actually go back to prison for having a bullet. I heard of a case where the guy had an empty shell casing and he was uh, um, bioed on that. An empty shell casing. Really? You bioed him on that? It turns out, no, that was not the only reason his PO bioed him. There was more to it than just that. That's just the only thing the PO could prove. I caught him, or Reading police, rather, caught him with an empty shell casing, brought him to me, and I put him back in stir for 6 months. Oh, okay. Turns out what was actually going on was literally everybody in his life, including his own mother, was telling the PO he's stealing drugs again. He swore he wasn't, but when the whole world's telling you that you're wrong, it's time to shut up and listen. Might be right, but it's time to shut up and listen. So anyway, um, the rest of them, you can't be cited for it, you can't be punished for it, but they might take it away from you. Right? All right, so habitual drug abuser. This actually goes back to drug addict exemption. That was the original title. To get that exemption, though, you actually have to be busted for something to do with drug use. Let's pretend, for sake of argument, that I am a medical marijuana card holder. That's a real thing here. Okay. And there are people that say, your PTSD would be a lot better if you just smoked pot all the time. Well, okay, maybe they're right. But I'm allergic, so moving on. But let's just say I do. And I'm out and I just smoked some pot and I drive my car through a brick wall. Okay, that's felony DUI. So now I have a felon exemption. Well, in 2 years of putting my shit back together, I'm better. I go to the judge and say, I'd like to have this felony DUI mitigated or closed or whatever the hell they call it here. In most of the states, it's expunged. But I've still got the drug abuser exemption. That's one of the ones where the judge can really go and say, you know what, yeah, you got into trouble for your drug use. We need to talk a little bit more seriously. Mr. Carey, by the way, um, you have a medical marijuana card. Your Honor, that is not a listed exemption. You're right, but you got into trouble with while you were on pot. So here's what I'm saying. Either you carry or you're under the influence. Pick one. Okay, Your Honor. So if I go home, I roast a bowl and then I sleep it off. I don't know. Are you not under the influence after 12 hours? How about every 12 hours after you roast? Okay, Your Honor, I can get with that plan. Judges have a lot more leniency because drugs, they affect your mind. Aspirin affects your mind, just not nearly as badly as pot. I'm going to catch up with the comments because I know the question was asked. Alpine Gulch says, interesting. I had a similar experience with a single bullet and an ex-boyfriend and PO. Okay, she's talking about the felon in possession exemption. Uh, did you ever live in Redding, California? I'm just asking because I might be talking about your ex-boyfriend. And yeah, one bullet. A cousin of mine got into trouble that way too. Alpine Gulch says, didn't know they had an exemption to carry. Yeah, that's a mandatory exemption. The moment you step forward and say, Your Honor, I'm asking for an exemption, I have a medical marijuana card, that's one, the judge still has to give you an exemption, but what they have to give you might be very nuanced to your specific circumstances. Um, um, let's say you've got, let's say I'm a habitual meth user. And the judge says, you know what, every time you've been busted, you were on meth. Are you ever not on meth? No, Your Honor. Okay, here's your total exemption. You go home, and oh, yeah, by the way, you got busted this time. I'm going to make you a deal here. This is drug court. You're exempt from mandatory carry. And oh, yeah, by the way, you got a choice. You can either go to prison for 3 years or you can go into treatment. Pick one. They do that all the time. Alpine Ghost says, no, I was in Arizona. That's right. You have said Arizona before. My bad. Okay. Felon, mental, physical, psychological exemption, homeless, Antifa. I got them all. That's a long list. I sometimes forget one. All right, moving on to conditional exemptions. The first one, and this is applied to me from time to time, like right now, it's kind of applying to me a little bit. Nature of work. It's conditional unsafe circumstances. The one that I always put in my mind, though, utility workers and sewage line workers. Utility workers, even now, every so often, a power line worker specifically gets. I just heard something. I will be right back. Sorry about that, guys. What's that noise? I think it was the wind. I'm gonna tell the whole world the truth here. One of my big fears has been getting swatted, not getting doxxed. I've been doxxed before. It's no big deal. I know the next time I accidentally, as the deputy put it, dox myself, I'm in trouble. Okay. Um, I'm a lot more careful about that now. Right? I would tell you all my real name, except next time I do that, I'm in trouble. And I have announced my name on YouTube and Facebook before. There's a few people out there. The guy who created my new logo, he knows my real name. Um, so yeah, if I don't do something to accidentally, in the opinion of some people, dox myself, I'm okay. Alpan Gult says, you would never believe my name. Oh, I think whatever it is, I'd believe it. Might not be able to spell it correctly, but I'd believe it. One of my real fears, though, has always been getting swatted. Swatting came this close to becoming a permanent mandatory exemption. And what happened? I said, I want swatting. Well, it's meant as a joke. Well, no, it's not meant as a joke anymore. People have actually died. See, here's the case study. Well, no, you can't do that. You can't do that, and you can't do that. Whatever. If it were up to me, swatting, however, would be a permanent exemption. Give you an idea of how dangerous swatting really is. First of all, people have actually died from swatting, although apparently there was only one case so far. One case I know about. Not just that there's only one case, it's just the only case I know about. And second of all, um, I got to throw them under the bus. I'm sorry. Somebody tried to swat donut operator. Like, dude, the fuck is your major malfunction? You tried to swat a cop. It doesn't even work that way. For those of you that know the TV series Blue Bloods, they actually addressed that subject one time. Garrett got swatted. And I'm watching that episode and thinking, wait, what? That doesn't look right. It was literally the entire uh, police department outside his door. Now, Garrett doesn't live in New York proper. He lives one of those outlier villages to the just northwest of New York. So it was a slightly smaller department. Hey, Total. Gobble gobble. Happy Thanksgiving to you too. The entire police department is outside his door. I'm watching this. That doesn't look right. Right? About a year later, donut operators talking about, I got swatted. Whoa. This guy's a former cop. What? Well, no, it turns out that somebody tried to swat him. And it didn't work out that well, did it? Cops know each other, right? I don't know what it is, but you put two former cops within a quarter of a mile of each other with clear line of sight, and they will know. Um, so when somebody tried to swat donut operator, the first thing they did was called his house and asked him, is everything okay? Yeah, everything's okay. I'm gaming right now. Okay. We're not coming down, or we're going to send somebody by just to make sure, or whatever. Yeah, no problem. And I'm sure that poor patrol guy was like the newest one on the force and had to go down there and knock, knock, knock. Yeah, I'm doing a welfare check. Yep, we're good here. Thank you. I actually feel bad for that poor patrol guy who had to go knock on a former cop's door. Like, you tried to swat a cop, you dumb shit. Don't do that. Came that it came that close. Um, the compromise with that actual argument, we're sitting on the phone screaming at each other. First of all, was to hang up the phone. All right, we have a rule. You say one particular word, everything stops right there. She said the word, close my mouth. I hit the off button. Um, and we understand. All right, it's another one of our safe rules, safe words. This one means everything stops right now. Whatever's going on, it stops right now. Hung up the phone, and what we did was we emailed back and forth. And we have a rule about that too. If it's a hot and heavy subject where you're really mad, you get it, you look at it, you can look at it right away, cannot say anything. You have to we have to handwrite down what our response would be first. And then 12 hours later, we can actually make the response. Um, and that's kind of the way we deal with it. The compromise there was to actually raise swatting to an attempted murder crime. Ooh, that was brilliant because A, and it becomes a murder if anybody actually dies. Because A, it is actually trying to get somebody killed. B, somebody could be killed. And C, you tried to use the power of the state to enforce it. That's three bads in a row. Alpine Gulch. Cops used to be at my door all the time for loud music. I'm always prepared. Yeah, it's not quite the same thing unless somebody's calling and saying your music is loud. In which case, there's first of all, there's some rules about when they can come bang on your door over the loud music, and second of all, I I can sit outside somebody's house and say whether the music is loud or not. It's can I hear it? Can I feel it from the curb? If I'm on the sidewalk and I can still hear it, it's not that loud. But if I'm sitting in my car out on the curb or on the other side of the street, as one particular case happened to be, and I can still feel the bass coming off that house, your music's a little louder than it needs to be. That was also like at 20, 20, 30, something like that. There's still hour and a half to 2 hours until the time hits when you actually have to turn the music down. So, okay. Gulch says, yes, complaints from neighbors in an apartment complex. I get it. Okay, I get it. That's one of those situations where, first of all, the last thing you do is call the cops. The first thing you do is knock on their door and say, "Hey, the music's loud." There might have been more to it than that, but yeah, the last thing you do is call the cops. There's no excuse for that. That's low quality swatting, people. Control says, I'm thankful for not being a sheep. Yeah, yeah. I don't know if that's a little bit of a joke about what happened to Dad, or for the bigger picture statement, or both. By the way, don't worry about if it's a little bit of a joke, because he's already told the same joke 4 times. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. Do want to get back on track. Uh, but yeah, swatting in swatters. Okay, conditional exemptions. First of all, unsafe for working environment. Um, the picture I usually put at the top of my head is utility workers. Every once in a while, a utility worker does get zapped. On that zap could set off the rounds, which sets a whole lot of other shit into motion. People can get hurt needlessly real fast. Does a electrical utility worker then get an exemption? Yeah, literally just like that. Your Honor, I'm a lineman for the power company. Rubber stamp. Not in show proof of employment, but you're good. Another one I thought of is sewer workers. Ironically enough, first of all, you're crawling around in tight spaces and you've already got enough gear on you to make things not always ideal. And second of all, methane gas forms down in the sewer system, right? You discharge a firearm down in the sewer system, what happens? Well, it can get real fast, right? That's an exemption I would personally write as a subset example, or a subset exemption. Um, Nature of employment exemption also says you don't necessarily have to have your weapon in your vehicle. You can leave it at work. You can leave it in your car. You can leave it anywhere where you feel it's safe to leave it. Going back to the utility worker example, and this is like 15 years ago that I heard about it. I'm not even sure if it's true, but apparently somebody tried to steal a pruning, well, a bucket truck. You know, those trucks with the buckets so you can work on utility or trees or whatever. Somebody tried to steal one of those trucks with the guy in the bucket. That was a bad scenario. Now, if somebody's willing to steal the truck with somebody in the bucket, what on earth is going to stop them from breaking into the truck to steal a gun? So here you are, a utility worker, saying, I don't think it's safe to leave my gun in my car or my truck while I'm working. Understood? Chris, God, go. Um, I really think that those exemptions, after about 6 months of not quite totally understanding what the rule says, the peace officers are going to be like, oh, okay, no problem, understood. Control says, just happy to be not a mindless sheep. Yeah. All right. I was just talking about Pappa Carry a moment ago. I said I'd come back to this. Um, Dad broke his hip. He is high as a kite right now. As a matter of fact, for those of you who were here earlier on, you heard my phone ring. I guarantee that that's Dad telling me that he's out of the hospital on his way home, because it's right about the right time. um, Inebriation. That's a conditional exemption. That is a specifically listed conditional exemption. Remember, the only two that once you get it, you have to obey it is felon, and violent political protester. All of the rest, it's just a proactive defense. If you are ever cited, Pappa Carry would be exempt right now. I can hear it in his voice. When I talk to him on the phone, his voice has changed. It didn't change because of maturity. It changed because he's high as a kite right now. I've even told him, Dad, how much drugs are you on? A lot. Right. Um, and I want to emphasize this. You don't have to use the inebriation exemption. But if you do, or if you are inebriated and you make a bad judgment call, you can get into a lot of trouble real fast. Alpine says beer time, yeah. One of my whipping boys of a sorts, Pulse nightclub. Not everybody at Pulse nightclub was drunk. There was a lot of designated drivers in there that night. There's also a lot of drunk people. All right. Now, if you think that you can drink and carry responsibly, well, good luck. If you can't, you might get yourself in a lot more trouble. Just saying. So yeah, inebriation is a specifically listed exemption. Yeah, total. He's feeling no pain. Total Control says glad Pappa Carry is feeling better. Yeah, he's feeling no pain, and he's going home today. Um, right, the last two exemptions are elective exemptions. You have to elect to use this. It's not really a proactive, well, I should say, these are not proactive defenses. You have to go out of your way to get them. But the first one is conscientious objector. To get a conscientious objector exemption, you have to go to a professional who is willing to sign an affidavit that says, Mike Carey, me, I'm a psychiatrist, or I'm a chaplain, or I'm a this, or I'm a that, or I'm whatever professional. I have a license that I'm putting at risk here. My opinion that yes, he is actually a conscientious objector. Please grant him the exemption. Okay, I go to the courthouse, I get that conscientious objector exemption. For the most part, these should be what is it they call them? Process judges, like traffic court judges. They're not actually judges, and usually they're not even lawyers. There's somebody who stands behind the counter. You hand them your paperwork saying, I'm here to pay my fine, or I'm here to object to my ticket, and this is the reason why. And they have to sit there and say, okay, well, you checked all the boxes. Yeah, you're exempt. You're not exempt. Whatever. And they could actually sit there and say, okay, well, there's this. I can't process this one. It has to go up further. This one's kind of a dangerous one to use, especially if you work in construction, if you're a chef, if you work in some other field where you deal with potentially dangerous or deadly weapons all the time, because you might lose your job. That's an important thing to consider. If they see that you're a chef, construction worker, whatever, they can't. This process judge cannot sign off. They have to pass it up the chain of command to a sworn judge, who then could actually impose additional restrictions. Take a chef, for example. Back in 2000, 2005, early 2005, I was a seaman aboard cutter Sockeye. We were underway, and I flippantly said, The the chef, the cook, the FS2, was the most heavily armed motherfucker on this boat. Well, I flippantly said it, but I wasn't lying, and I knew what I was saying. This guy had a a lockable briefcase. I swear to God, it was this wide and that thick and about that tall. Over a $500,000 worth of knives, forks, that sort of thing. He paid for those out of his special budget. Everywhere in the Coast Guard he goes, those go with him. Yeah. And he had instant access to them whenever he wanted. The armory, the XO or the captain has to go down with whoever is supposed to get them and unlock. He literally has his knives in the drawer of his rack because he has to keep custody of those. By the way, he can't leave them in the galley. Any jackass could walk in there, take the briefcase out, walk off the boat. Those knives are Coast Guard property that he has custody of. He's got to protect them. I'm just saying. Right. Total Control says FBI backflip. I'm kind of confused what that means. So if you could follow up, I'd appreciate it. Conscientious objector, you may lose your job, or you may have really crazy restrictions like my old FS2 had. Now he has $500,000 of cutlery that he has to keep control and special care of. And the last one is just purely elective exemption. You walk in, you say, Your Honor, I do not want to carry. I don't have any other exemption. I just don't want to do it. I don't want to be bothered. And every year you will pay a fee. Still working on the numbers a little bit, but the point of the fee is to make it more expensive to be electively exempt than it is to just obey this law. I would love for anyone to point out anywhere else that you can get an elective exemption to a social mandate. There's no elective exemption for seatbelts. There's no elective exemption for having a fire extinguisher in your house. There's no elective exemption for having your kids in car seats. I'm just saying, if you can find one, I'm listening. Alpine says chef's knives too. Well, yeah. Gosh, holy crap. FS2 had um, cutlery, chef's knives specifically. He had styles I'd never even heard of before. I had to look them up. And even now, I can't even remember what they were called. But this was some really obscure carving knife that nobody has used in 20, 30 years. Total Control says nightclub, drunk, tried to pull a backflip, gun fell out and shot a guy in the leg. Oh my God. And it's on YouTube, of course it is. Yeah, that is a huge, huge conditional exemption fail by a cop. Okay. I'm not going to look it up. Uh, first of all, it's there somewhere, I'm sure. Second of all, I'm not going to spend 3 days trying to find it with some obscure name. Is he still an FBI agent? Let me just put that out. And that's a yes or no question. Is he still an FBI agent? I hope not. Gulch says, not telling you anything without the safe. I can tell you that it starts with F and ends with T, and you can't say it on Facebook. That is the all stop safe word. Hell no, good. I don't even have to ask. Good. Maybe he gets it back later. Maybe not. That's his problem at this point. Screw him. Um, yeah, I just gotta wonder if maybe he's a mandatory exemption. You know, Part G, which is Part Charlie, which is someday going to become uh, a what's it called? When you say a whole sentence in 2 words, not catchphrase, but whatever. Everybody will understand. You call somebody a Part G, you just call them retarded. I can't say the R word on YouTube. Oh well, screw it. It's done now. It's not a monetized channel anyway. What do I give a fuck? Um, yeah. You call somebody a Part Charlie, and they're like, yeah, you're an idiot. Um, so yeah, I'm wondering if your FBI agent is a Part Charlie. Okay, so those are the exemptions. Now, will there be others later on? Yeah, possibly. Um, y'all know how I feel about swatting. Um, I'm not going to fight that battle right now, but yeah, it's a possibility. 2, 3 years ago, first, okay, 2, 3 years ago when I realized that oh, we need an Antifa exemption, and I don't have a choice on this matter anymore. Before that, like 6 weeks, a month, whatever. Before that, I had said we will never ever need another exemption. There's no point. I've covered everything. And then the limo caught fire. Limo was torched, and I said, you know what? I was wrong. I know that now. Will there ever be another exemption? Maybe. I'd like to think probably not. I'd like to think I've covered everything that needs to be covered. Um, but just because of something California pulled later on that same year, I added one more rule. This says that if you pass a law that will affect data swab in any way, shape, or form, it also has to pass a 2/3 muster of the House and the Senate and get presidential approval, or it has to pass 3/4 of the House and the Senate, and not combined, but separately. So there's 100 senators. 75 of them all have to vote yes. They can't vote present. Hi, troll. I never get notifications. I'm sorry. I can't control that. Um, they can't vote present. 25 of them can say present. This 75 of them have to vote yes. I will be right back. This isn't swatting. This is there's a motor running that shouldn't be. My bad, folks. It's just a heater. I need to turn that heater down, and that can wait. Um, somebody in the comments maybe knows the answer off the top of their head. How many representatives are there? But let's just say 1,000 for the moment. 750 of them all have to vote yes. All right. Why this really weird and very obscure rule inside one amendment that affects literally everything else on earth. Because the same standard that was necessary to get this law passed should also be the standard to affect it. Um, it's as simple as that. To do otherwise invites that little by little you're going to make these little rules that say, oh, this is gone and that's gone. I mean, I can literally see in my head, um, Dataslav passes, and Dataslav is not just the Enabling Act anymore. It is actually the 27th. I think it's 27th. It will be the 27th Amendment. It doesn't repeal the second. It just basically rewrites the Second Amendment to say, oh, yeah, by the way, this is what we really mean, right? You have to carry. And the only restrictions that the federal government can put on are these three specific ones. The only restriction the states can put on is this one specific, and the cities and counties can't do anything. They have absolutely no authority here. Um, so if we set this huge standard to make this law, then everything else has to be equal to changing this law. And I could just see like New Jersey. I do pick on New Jersey a little bit, saying, okay, well, we as a state are going to ban the that new gun, or that new caliber, I should say, 300 something, 300 blackout. Let's just say 300 blackout because it's too powerful. Okay, well, that law is going to affect Dataslav. So the feds, not the state of New Jersey, the feds have to vote on that. And then they have to amend Dataslav accordingly. Good luck with that. Um, right. Since I have opened that door, or at least pointed out the door is there, um, what does the feds get to regulate? And it's regulate, not ban. Automatic weapons and burst fire weapons, um, continuous feed weapons, and explosive and incendiary munitions. They don't get to ban those things. They just get the authority to say, if you want these, you have to go through an extra step. And it is literally a uh, checkbox step. You fill out one piece of paper, gives certain critical information on you and maybe your business. And do you have a criminal record, or do we have any felonies? No, no, I have a criminal record. I have one misdemeanor and a couple of traffic tickets. No, no, or yes, in my case, I disturbing the peace. Okay, whatever. Um, Pass muster. Here's your class 3. All right, I'm going to catch up with chat real quick. I'm following. Okay. Fun fact. Alpine Gulch says, fun fact, talking about swatting causes audio hallucinations. Okay. Well, it was not an audio hallucination this time. It was actually a motor that was running. Um, Total. I did not know that about you. I'm so sorry, bro. I am. I would help you get out of there if I could. And Troll is sympathizing as well. Um, yeah, I would help you get out of there if I could. On the plus side, um, Total, and those of you that do live in those dictatorships, when Dataslav passes, you can say goodbye to all those quaint little local dictatorships. Okay, so on the one side is the federal authority to act. It is literally these three things and nothing else. They cannot regulate um, new technologies coming in. They cannot regulate new technologies going out. There is, and this was actually a considered list. Now, there's a couple things that I would consider putting on that list if somebody could make the case for them. They're already covered by 5 or 6 other things that makes it very, very bad thing. Don't do those sorts of things. And I don't want to say it out loud because I don't want to literally write ISIS's playbook for them. Don't do those sorts of things. All right. Moldy Locks found out the very, very hard way what happens when you fuck around and find out. Um, just saying that's kind of a hint what direction those are going. If you have the class 3, you could literally walk into any gun store that's willing to deal with those high-end items, hand them your driver's license. It's literally that simple. Do a thumbprint. Yes, this driver's license is a legit class 3 holder. Thumbprint says, yes, this is actually him. You could walk out 20 minutes later with, your M16 with the fight light and the explosive rounds in 300 blackout, in 50 cal BMG. Let's go there, right? Um, Otherwise, somebody like me who A, doesn't need, B, doesn't want, and C, can't afford that sort of hardware would just have to walk out. I'd be happy to walk out with our little Glock. Okay. Um, what can the states regulate? They can regulate reasonable requirements for concealed carry permit. That is it. They have no other authority. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. California in particular has me pissed off because when I was a kid, first of all, you could open carry a handgun. You could not carry an open gun or open carry a long arm in public. You could open carry this in public, no problem. When I first got back from Acacia, I did exactly that. There were some specific rules to open carry that you had to obey that are, by the way, not on the list anymore. Um, you could. I walked past the Capitol building. I did get stopped by a highway patrolman, and she did ask me a couple of very pointed questions. She wanted to see my ID for one thing, which she has actually the legal duty to do that. Police officer, if they stop you for a reason, has a legal duty to find out who the hell are you. Um, she wanted to see my ID. She wanted to know my name. She did demand to see the weapon, and she removed it from my holster herself. No problem. Somewhere along the way, they suddenly said, nope, you can't open carry in California anymore. Fuck you. By the way, I'm going to say this straight up. You get 2 blocks past California's Capitol building, and you're in a really rough neighborhood. Sorry. Um, you have to be potentially ready to deal with a problem then in that neighborhood. Okay, so they can't the open carry will now be federal law. CCW reciprocity will now be federal law. You get your concealed carry permit in. Um, Troll said open carry here, moving to constant. I happen to know Troll lives in Georgia, right? And open carry is legal there. But let's say Troll decides to go through the hassles of getting his CCW will be valid in. I'm terribly sorry, ladies and gentlemen. I Yeah, I'm going to have to wrap this one up because I got somebody who's beating my door down. Sorry about that, folks. Your CCW will be valid in Hawaii, which does not issue CCWs. If you're not a cop, you're not getting a CCW in Hawaii. Pretty much that simple. Um, and there's nothing in there that says the states cannot pass open carry or constitutional carry if that's what they choose to do. Also, it says reasonable, and I believe it now says relative to the other states. I have my own standard, and if New Jersey and California decide they want to fuck with this uh, authority enough, fuck you too. I'll set the standard, and you're going to hate it. Tell you all the truth. My standard would be at 20 feet, a man-sized paper target, one load, one complete load, one reload. Put every bullet into the targets. All right, the whole piece of paper, not just the outline, not just the silhouette. You passed. Oh, and you can pass a 10 question uh, pass fail closed book test about use of force in your state. Okay. Damn. Sorry, guys. I overshot. Troll says, I'm upset with my high school guidance counselor. Gold says, sorry, was just teasing you. Got to wrestle a turkey. I'm not sure what she's talking about. Troll says, open carry here. I noticed that. And moving to constitutional carry, which your state can do that. Gulch says, troll me too. This channel is fun. I've never heard myself referred to as fun before. Um, Total Control says, if vast amounts of the population were to start living off-grid, homestead, and well-armed, I guarantee you, military will come for you. Law enforcement will come for you. The military is not allowed to act unless the National Guard is called out. Just saying. Troll says, a lot of people are off-grid. I'm partially off-grid. Troll corrected my English. The word is reciprocity. And Total says the lib commies want a national face diaper mandate. Come back to that in a second. Then why can't we have open carry mandate in all 50 states? Because actually, Dataslav is an open carry, not man, it's a carry mandate, not necessarily an open carry mandate. You could still conceal carry if you want to be bothered with it. It's just that simple. And if you don't want to be bothered, you have an open carry mandate. So it kind of that is kind of what it is. This is going to be an unpopular opinion. I understand that the virus is actually potentially really dangerous, and in a way that we haven't seen since the Black Plague. Actually, a lot more dangerous than that. I also know, first of all, this isn't the 14 fucking hundreds. All right. I survived meningitis at 6 months old back in 1976 and 7. Since then, meningitis has gone from a guaranteed death or permanent vegetative state to a very, very serious illness that needs to be treated quickly and effectively with a 75, I think it is, percent survival rate, 80%, something like that. It only is bad if you can go 2 or 3 days without uh, being treated. That is how far medicine has gotten just since I was born. Now we're talking about the 1400s versus today. For those of you that say, the virus is going to kill us all, you're full of shit. You're lying to me. Fuck off. For those of you that are saying, yes, it's dangerous, yeah, potentially is. All right, a little social distancing. Of course, I was social distancing before it was cool, but whatever. Um, if you have to wear a mask under a situation, wear a mask under a situation. We don't need this ridiculous. You have to wear a mask at all times, including in your car. Every time I see somebody wearing a mask in their car, I wish that guy could get pulled over just for endangering public safety. You're wearing masks restrict your ability to breathe a little bit automatically. Being in a car with your windows rolled up restricts your breathing a little bit. You're setting yourself up to be passed out behind the wheel because you're so paranoid about a virus that you will recover from actually in about 10 days. Most people don't realize that. It takes about 10 days for your body to fight the infection off. It takes the other 4 days for it to fight it off so much that you can't give it to others. That's the 14 days. And it is still an executive order, I think in Michigan, that if you are driving, you have to wear a face mask. What? What kind of ridiculousness is this? Now, like I said, I understand this thing is actually potentially extinction level event if we do nothing. We did something. We did a lot. We don't need this ridiculousness of wearing masks in cars and literally everywhere else. Do not get me started about the new CDC mandates, or I'm sorry, CDC recommendations, or not mandates. No loud music. For those of you that follow me on Instagram, I actually went there. Let's start a riot, a riot. Yeah. Um, the same kind of thinking that leads people to say this virus is going to kill us all. It's the same kind of thinking that leads people to say, 33-ish thousand gun deaths every year. No, it's about 5,000. The rest are 2/3 of the rest are suicides. Take guns away, they're going to hang themselves or they're going to overdose. Most people don't realize this. The most common suicide method is overdose. You take a hot shot knowing it's hot, lock yourself up in your car or whatever, and you just go to sleep and that's it. You never ever wake up. Now, that method is coming down really quickly because of Narcan, excuse me. And Narcan and a little drug overdose awareness could have solved a lot of problems back in August. Unfortunately, the people dealing with that situation didn't realize what they were dealing with until it was far, far too late. Next most common method is hanging because it's effective. Most people don't understand this. Gun suicide is only roughly 50% effective. You have to align the gun properly to your head for it to be effective. And most people don't know how to do that. That's also why it's much more effective for former military and law enforcement than it is for everybody else. With them, it's about 75%. They're keeping that 50% number buoyed almost by themselves. Of the remaining 10,000, about half are accidents, which are often not really accidents, you know what I mean? And I forgot what the remaining roughly 2,000 are. Okay, Totes says, now you know why I'm thankful for not being a sheep. Millions of tested PCR false positive. I'm going to assume PCR has something to do with the coronavirus. And yeah, I know the tests are not reliable. I know somebody who tested positive and was negative. I know somebody who posted or tested negative until he actually went to the hospital with breathing problems. I only know one person who actually got the virus. The guy that gave it to him, I'm sorry, I know two people. The guy who gave it to him should actually be charged with a crime of his own. All right, guys, I have a situation that is developing very, very quickly. I have got to wrap this one up early. Don't fear reality. All right. There's somebody I'm trying to make contact with who can snap some reality out of some stupid people. Um, and like I said, I got to wrap this one up early. Happy Thanksgiving. Invite 50 people. Play that music as loud as you can. And let's stop being afraid of reality and start embracing it. I'm just saying, life would be a lot easier that way. Keep calm and mandatory carry on.